Good evening, Dr. Rajiv.
Good evening, Priyanka.
How are you today?
Well, today is a special day. It's a day for us to remember probably why we are here today, right? And where we started from. So it's a very special day. I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay, but I have something to say, and that is the fact that we worked very hard, and we worked very hard to build a space. So you always have somebody to turn to. Conversations, power nuggets, studies, insights, toolkits, learning management system, and a lot more that is being done so that you can go ahead and own your future. Dr. Rajiv, who's the guest today?
Well, that's the interesting part today, right? We'll discover who's the guest because we're going to turn the tables today. Because today is a special day. And before we do that, uh, let's play a normal video first, and then I will introduce the special person who's joining us today. What do you think, Priyanka?
Let's introduce the work then.
Well, as I promised, Priyanka, we have a special day, a special show. And today, I have a great sense of privilege, honor, excitement, all put it together, not to just welcome Divya here in a special capacity. She's not here as a guest, by the way. She is our host. So, today, for this episode that we're going to be running, we have a special host who's been so gracious enough to celebrate this momentous day with us, our 25th episode. And for those who don't know you, know Divya, probably are not on LinkedIn, probably don't know the amount of amazing work she does. Divya is probably one of the finest persons I've seen on LinkedIn who does some dedicated work. She has focused her efforts around being a coach to CEOs. And more than that, I think she's a wonderful human being. And testimony to that is she's here with us to celebrate this great moment for us. Thanks, Divya. We are so honored to have you. And I just, I'm so excited as probably Priyanka is in walking this journey with you, where you take over. And I don't know, should I use the word grill us or just allow us to speak our minds? It's going to be fun. That's all I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Thank you so much, Rajiv ji, and thank you so much, Priyanka. I am super glad to be the host today and super glad to see you as the guest on your own show. I remember in July 2021 when you started Own Your Future, and the first time I read this name, and I was like, wow, amazing name. This instantly clicked, that Own Your Future. That means something about future is going to be talked on the show, and you're going to empower the audience about owning their future, be it in personal, professional, or business growth or in their environments. So, absolutely looking forward to. I would love to know, Priyanka and Rajiv, from you. How's the journey so far? So, if you have some video or if you would love to talk about it, I would love to understand the journey so far.
So I did my homework and I put all of that together in what is popular on social media these days. Let's look at the journey so far with all the guests who've
Absolutely.
spared time for us.
Sure. Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, Rajiv ji. I would love to see you both focusing in today's episode about OYF, about the backstory, about the current work that you're doing, about OYF vision, and finally the way forward. So, I have yet another question. I would love to ask you, why are you calling this episode Crossroads to Clarity?
I think that's a very interesting thought in the beginning. And as I was watching this video play, and first of all, it gave me goosebumps. To be honest, it sort of gave me that sense of a great amount of nostalgia, right? Of the journey, of the experiences, of where it started, and what it is sort of all about. And the thought that came to me was that through every conversation that we've had, through every experience that we brought to life, we have attempted, and I'm using the word attempted because in our capacity of being able to talk with people, impact people, we try to sort of refer to them and help them with things that are troubling them the most. So, one thing is for sure, I in my life, Divya, you in your stages of life, Priyanka through whatever she's done, and so many of us who are watching today and have been part of this journey with us, all of us have one thing that we all have experienced: roadblocks, speed breakers, crossroads. And because I'm yet to meet somebody who hasn't done that, right? And given that scenario, and given the reality of what we are all experiencing and we continue to experience, I think the only way forward for people to untangle themselves is when they shift from crossroads, take control of themselves, and shift towards clarity. It's this journey, this attempt that we want to bring to life. It's
Yeah,
this experience that we want to encapsulate through what we've done so far, what all of us collectively bring to the table, and take it to the next level. So there was no
yeah,
better way than this to really call it crossroads to clarity. Because
absolutely.
everybody is at a crossroad and everybody seeks clarity. So here we are
Absolutely.
serving those who we can support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rajiv ji, because you have given immense amount of clarity about Crossroads to clarity, and I've also seen the guests that have been invited and the kind of sessions they have taken with you and the kind of themes that you have dealt with on OYF show. Priyanka, I would love to ask you, what is your observation about Crossroads to clarity? Because Rajiv ji's perspective would be somewhat different from you. So I would love to know your view as well.
So, my view is that we all travel a journey, and there is a certain amount of experience which helps us make choices. But sometimes when we are like, and to use terms from this world of data science and things that we understand otherwise, I think one way to say is that for whatever that we want to start with, it needs to start with the hypothesis. Very often, this hypothesis is from what we have experienced. But the point that I want to make is that that hypothesis is basis a single individual experience, respecting that experience definitely. But is it
Mm-hmm.
comprehensive? Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not. We are one
Mm-hmm.
amongst a few billions in the world. So that
Mm-hmm.
experience is valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
can I do better to build a hypothesis?
Yeah.
So for me,
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to the world and
Mm-hmm.
OYF is a means to be able to understand what can I do better to have more comprehensive hypothesis. So as
Mm-hmm.
we traveled and as we spoke to a lot of people, we'll come up with the data sets as we talk.
Mm-hmm.
The
Interesting.
conclusion of
Mm-hmm.
all that
Mm-hmm.
the conclusion of all that individually was that a lot of people moved from crossroads to clarity. So for me,
Abs-
it is one step before you construct a hypothesis,
Wow.
and
Wow.
that's what we've really used the social media for.
Wow, amazing. And I know you have been in the space of digital marketing. So, you would love to gather the data points. You would love to talk about numbers. You would love to talk from data perspective. Now, my next observation is when I saw this name, Own Your Future, and me being a personal branding professional, I've seen that, brand is equal to identity. So the kind of identity you have given to this show, which is Own Your Future, is just amazing, absolutely amazing. But I would love to know, how did this name come into the picture? Is it that you collectively figured out, or is it something struck your mind that yes, this is what we want to do? I would love to know the story behind. Come on. Yeah.
Well, the story is like when you name a child, right? There's a lot of things that go in your head, right? You want to name a child, you have to say,
Yeah.
kya naam hona chahiye, how does it work, and all this stuff. But sometimes names happen because they stand for who you are. They stand
Absolutely.
for the purpose that you exist for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be honest with you, uh, I have to make a confession here. My
Okay.
confession is that
Mm-hmm.
OYF is not a name that we planned for. It just
Ah,
happened, right?
interesting.
And
Okay.
it happened because it was probably meant to happen. And it was meant to
Ah.
happen because of a
Mm-hmm.
simple reason, because it is
Mm-hmm.
who we are, who we think about as.
Mm-hmm.
It started
Mm-hmm.
with me. I was in fact in one of the conversations with Priyanka. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was telling her that I was looking
Mm-hmm.
back at some of my notes about 2 years back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the stuff that I had written down, all the stuff that I have been sort of referring to, they were
Mm-hmm.
traces of future, building capabilities, growth, all of it that sort of has been within areas of my own personal journey, my own personal commitment to the work and the type of investment I do in people and their success. So when
Mm-hmm.
something like this was to happen, probably all of that collected and this name just emerged. And
Mm-hmm.
as I said, it is a mirror of what I stand for, what I wanted to do. And then in this
Absolutely.
journey came this wonderful person by the name Priyanka, who was kind enough to come on board. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons why probably it clicked is because there was so much of similarity in wanting to do. I'll give you one small example here.
Mm-hmm.
We had said when we started the show that we will do this show on two conditions. One,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
we will do it in a way and manner that we will be honest, truthful, and only bring real experiences to this whole. I'm not saying the others don't
Amazing.
do it. Please don't misunderstand me
Mm-hmm.
there. But the
Mm-hmm.
intent was here that
Mm-hmm.
the honesty of the show is in showcasing journeys and not looking at milestones of success and failure. And the
Mm-hmm.
second was, he said that the
Mm-hmm.
day we stop being different, we would stop doing this show.
Mm-hmm.
25th
Okay.
episode means that we're doing something right. Having you
Mm-hmm.
as our host reconfirms you're
Mm-hmm.
doing something right. Inderjeet Singh joining us from
Mm-hmm.
San Diego at 5:30 in the morning shows that we're doing
Mm-hmm.
something right. Thanks, Inderjeet. You are a
Absolutely.
great support man.
Yeah, and I also see Gurvinder Chatterjee is also been one of my guests on Value Addition Global Show. So, I mean, having joined from such far countries with time difference is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in here. Now, I've understood about the backstory of OYF. This also intrigues me that I need to know your backstories too, because this will help me understand, why exactly are you doing this, and what is the way forward. So I'll start with Priyanka. Priyanka would love to know your backstory, and then we'll come to Rajiv.
So my backstory is fairly simple. I think my backstory is OYF minus the words. I think that's really my backstory in one line. And
Okay.
professionally, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
MBA in I've post my management degree in finance and doing the regular stuff. I
I
think
see.
nobody that I met during the show was, the straight jacketed life that you thought will happen to you after you
Mm-hmm.
finish your management degree from a fancy college. I think that's
Yeah.
that's really where the strength of our collective experience lies, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was nice. So my story is OYF in action. I meaning I rose really well with the financial markets in India,
Yeah,
reached
I
to a
remember we
point.
had conversation. Yeah, and you were sharing, and that intrigues me even more. Someone from the financial markets background now coming into the content marketing and digital marketing would love to know more.
So digital marketing is a term that I couldn't relate much to, but the backstory to me really is that I'd reached the top and I'd kind of said, okay, you had to prove a point, and the only person I want to prove a point to is myself. I'd done
Absolutely.
that. I got
Yeah.
appointed to what was absolutely fancy. It was great, but
Wow.
it did not
Mm-hmm.
fit the puzzle. And that puzzle is really
Okay.
in your own head. So
Absolutely.
while you didn't know what the puzzle was, you didn't know the
Mm-hmm.
hypothesis, you didn't know any of that, you went with gut
Mm-hmm.
feel. So at some stage, I
Absolutely.
opted to start working with the internet. The first few, so the day you moved out of formal space, you were a novice, you were a fresher,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
nobody knew what your work was, who you were. Then you started from scratch. So I started
Mm-hmm.
from scratch again after having made it, and
Mm-hmm.
those were the days I call
Mm-hmm.
them floating around the internet. It got me
Mm-hmm.
very curious as to why is somebody making that kind of an effort to, share information which is so absolutely useful and usable. Like I was writing business plans for businesses across the world, and I was getting a
Mm-hmm.
lot of free information on the internet. But the
Mm-hmm.
question always nagged me, saying, why is somebody making so much of effort, no matter how cheap costs have come, but it
Yeah.
is still an investment to put up a website, put that content
Mm-hmm.
out, good content. And Google's making
Mm-hmm.
a lot of effort to kind of curate content, have
Mm-hmm.
websites and results show good quality. So and all that is happening for us for free, like it's library. So why
Yeah.
is that happening? And that's really when I started studying. I invest a lot in my own training, and I invest a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my own self, and the training and the projects that I do to kind of
Mm-hmm.
build that narrative. And over time, it's kind of been more yeses than others. So it's been
Amazing.
nice. I think OYF has been a good manifestation of I think what should be reality. I mean, we kind of created it from
Mm-hmm.
scratch, from the name
Mm-hmm.
itself, and it's becoming an entity. And that's heartening to see that the
Yeah.
digital world is offering such transformations
Mm-hmm.
and the opportunity
Absolutely.
to do that.
Wow, 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 Priyanka. I'm amazed to know about the backstory of yours, and specifically, I can relate to huge financial market success as a career, and then shifting your gears to something latest that's happening and that satisfies your soul.
Yeah.
So now, I would love to ask Rajiv ji what is his backstory, and something that he would love to share with us. Perhaps we didn't know about him. Back to you, Rajiv ji.
Okay, you always ask the difficult questions to me. You didn't ask her to tell you what people don't know of. So you always put those twists and make it difficult for me. That's not fair. But anyways, world is never fair. So it's not been to me
Okay.
either, like for to all of us. So
Mhm.
the great news is that I uh, as I was telling you earlier, I am proud to say that I have owned my future through my life.
Amazing.
From
Okay.
childhood in my
Mm-hmm.
personal journey
Mm-hmm.
to taking on responsibilities ahead of time because of
Mm-hmm.
various reasons, personal as well as professional,
Okay.
probably made a demand on me to
Mm-hmm.
act much ahead of time in a different way and manner from
I see.
who I was supposed to be. So to me,
So,
age, experience,
mm-hmm.
abilities, capabilities, skills have never mattered. What has
Mm-hmm.
mattered is willingness to do. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, in very simple terms, my backstory starts with being a newspaper salesperson to start my career,
I see. Okay.
to becoming a country head of the largest Asian education company,
Wow.
to being part of startups
Mm-hmm.
organizations as
Mm-hmm.
founding members, right from
Mm-hmm.
squabbles in startups to managing the journey of being in part of very process driven organizations to creating processes and the first process manual that is needed into it. So that transition,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
choices of shifting gears and making sure that you
Mm-hmm.
take those right steps to not only adjust yourself but help that business to grow to the next level,
Mm-hmm.
to becoming part of large corporate houses and sort of run startups within them. uh,
Mm-hmm.
to give you a small example, I was part of a telecom setup in Tata's where I was employee number one in that business. And I built
Wow.
that business to grow it
Mm-hmm.
into a 900 member team,
Wow.
right? and set up a chain of networks and a business which sort of contribute about 18 to 20% of revenues to that organization at one point in time, to becoming a
Wow.
CEO of a retail company working in the hardest
Mm.
market in the world in
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria. And I say anybody
Mm-hmm.
who's worked in Nigeria can work anywhere else, right?
Okay.
And but contrary to that, my experience of Nigeria, that's such a wonderful place, amazing people,
Mm-hmm.
such great experiences I've had there. To becoming a
Okay.
CEO of a retail business, managing
Mm-hmm.
global operations of
Mm-hmm.
a digital insurtech company. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I say all these is
Mm-hmm.
the fact that all these tags, journeys made me realize that how important it is for me to own my future. And one thing common across all that I've lived with my life,
Mm-hmm.
number one, I changed when I had to start afresh, which means
Mm.
I
So.
switched industries. So when
Mm-hmm.
you start afresh, you force
Mm-hmm.
yourself to begin at a place and a point where you have
Mm-hmm.
no choice but to own your future. And you make those
Mm.
choices and move forward on. The
Absolutely.
last 2.5 years of my life have been so eventful.
Mm.
Uh,
Okay.
the event started with me choosing to say that I have to make a choice, right, of what I should do. Should I continue
Mm-hmm.
to go back into the corporate rat
Mm-hmm.
race,
Mm-hmm.
start wearing new masks, start wearing new
Mm-hmm.
designations, start going after
Mm-hmm.
perks, or
Mm-hmm.
decide to do something on my own?
Mm-hmm.
I chose the contrary for reasons which I believe were the right ones, but the timing was
Mm-hmm.
probably mistimed, like for many of us, from a
Okay.
pandemic perspective and various other
Mm-hmm.
reasons. But what I
Mm-hmm.
did to myself was, again, going back to
Mm-hmm.
owning your future, what I chose to
Mm-hmm.
do to myself was I
Mm-hmm.
got myself certified, I
Mm-hmm.
invested in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Today, after all the years of experience,
Mm-hmm.
adding certain frameworks to that whole piece of work that I did of mentoring, coaching, training, helping businesses and people, and adding
Mm-hmm.
what people call as certifications. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
again saying certifications because the certification is not a merit, is not something which gives you the ability to become a coach or a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this to
Mm-hmm.
people that I work with because today that's what I
Mm-hmm.
do. I
Absolutely.
support human beings, people, professionals, and
Mm-hmm.
businesses to
Mm-hmm.
become equipped with two things: confidence and
Mm-hmm.
clarity. Because let me tell you,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
every
Mm-hmm.
business, every leader, every professional lacks these two things, but nobody will say that to you because they believe that
Mm-hmm.
appraisal ratings will get hit if they actually start saying
Mm-hmm.
that. But the fact
Mm-hmm.
of the reality is that they all lack that.
I
Supporting
see.
them in that journey to overcome that
Mm-hmm.
and help them move
Mm-hmm.
forward is what I today
Mm-hmm.
invest my time and effort in. And why I
Inspiring.
tell you that this
Mm-hmm.
is the best thing for me today? Because
Mm-hmm.
I am actually giving back based on
Mm-hmm.
all that I have learned.
Yeah,
And that gives me
absolutely.
a sense of pride. And today, through
Mm-hmm.
the OYF show, I've again challenged
Mm-hmm.
myself to do one last bit that I must share here. The
Mm-hmm.
show is a testimony to the fact that I pushed myself
Mm-hmm.
out of
Mm-hmm.
a comfort zone. I can have
Yeah,
never imagined that I would be doing something like this today. With
yeah,
such
yeah,
talented
yeah.
people like Priyanka and yourself here, a
Mm-hmm.
person with my background who's never done something like this, it's thanks
Mm-hmm.
to the encouragement people like you give to people like me that I'm here and I continue to sort of
Absolutely.
keep doing my bit. So thanks to all of you, and thanks to everybody who's been part of my journey. And let me tell you, the journey has just
Absolutely.
begun.
Yeah, it's just begun. And let me reinstate a few keywords that I've captured. One is giving back and comfort zone. And I personally believe, Priyanka and Rajivji, that, humans are driven by giving back, by their contribution. So most of the leaders I come across who have now, gone away from the rat race and they have chosen their own paths, they end up sharing that one thing we have realized that, getting out of comfort zone gives us the comfort. Now we have got into that habit that unless I get out of the current comfort zone, perhaps I'm not contributing something to the world. I'm just enjoying my own life. So that gives me a sense of accomplishment and a sense of contribution. That's very, very important. Now, this also brings me to the point here that after having run content marketing agency and personal branding agency, and helping top industry leaders build their brand using the power of web presence or content marketing or creating their posts, I when I last discussed with Priyanka, I was thrilled knowing that she has started contributing to creating more web presence. So, Priyanka, I would love to come to you and I would love to know more about your current contribution by means of creating more web presence. What is it and what exactly do you do and what do you plan to do in the future?
So web presence is means that web presence is as simple as what the word says. It's being present. The more
Yeah.
important question that we all need to answer as we float around the internet, like I was a few years back, is why? And I think that's
Yeah.
something that I also picked up in one of Divya's conversations that she was having on LinkedIn. That the why of what you do is as important as what you are doing itself. That said, what we are doing with web presence is simply that it's guiding with what is possible using the digital medium. We have our own journeys in which we have traveled from unknown, and of course with minor successes like today. It's possibly going to be unforgettable for at least some people, including me.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so web presence as a function means exactly that. It's being present on the internet. Now, why you
Wow.
want to be present on the internet is a longer
Mhm.
conversation, and
Mhm.
that conversation has many layers to it. That
Mhm.
conversation has two distinct sections. One
Mhm.
section talks about the brand, the person, the persona, and very often I can share with you, Divya, that why and the answer to that why is so
Mhm.
personal that it possibly will remain in a conversation with yourself. Like, why
True.
am I doing what I'm doing? Is a
Mhm.
conversation that you have with yourself, and perhaps that answer will go nowhere other than you. So, those are
Mhm.
extremely personal questions. What web presence is trying to do is to encourage people to use the medium of digital. It breaks social circles that we all have lived with in a non-digital era, and
Mhm.
it puts your work in the
Mhm.
center. It helps you
Mhm.
be known for the work and the effort that you make for it, and that's really
Mhm.
where the larger conversation is. The second section
Mhm.
that I was talking about is that it needs some amount of execution, and the
Absolutely.
fun bit is that this execution can happen uh, geopolitically a different, meaning I
Okay.
do not have to be sitting with Divya to be able to speak to her and explain her what I want to say, which is
Absolutely.
why it is possible to use the technical help sitting
Mhm.
in smaller cities of our country, and
Mhm.
that's really where the empowerment bit comes. So it's our little
Absolutely.
bit to make that effort so that people can kind of attend to their lives. We spoke to Kushal actually, who lives in a place called Dandeli, and
Mhm.
builds his work in dollars, and
Yeah.
has been able to. So that's a show. That's a good show. Go back and watch if somebody can find the time. And
Yeah.
so we've also spoken to people who are living out of Finland in a small town,
Mhm.
Olo, where we met Tess and how she moved from Uganda or one of the African nations to Dubai to Finland, and how she
Mhm.
has been able to leverage. So the internet gives you a great opportunity, and there are two parts to
Mhm.
it. One is why you are there, and that
Mhm.
becomes the core to your personal brand and your work,
Absolutely.
where you put your work
Absolutely.
in the forefront, and then
Mhm.
simple people from small towns who are able to execute uh,
Mhm.
what is needed to be done. So web presence
Yeah.
kind of works on two accounts, and
Yeah.
yeah, God willing, it should be able to support a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I strongly agree with you. Now, I would love to come back to Rajivji, and I have discovered, Rajivji, that you often use two strong keywords: accountability, partnerships. So, in your current work and current scope, I would love to know what is it and why is it so important?
Okay. I think it starts with the purpose of my existence.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say the purpose of my existence, uh, besides being invested in the success of an individual or a business, what is also important is the fact that what everybody that I have worked with in my professional roles as business leader, in my role as a coach, mentor, guide that I do today, supporting businesses and individuals today,
Mm-hmm.
they need somebody to be standing with them, not somebody behind them, not somebody ahead of them.
True.
So, the purpose of my existence is to be the accountability partner to the person who is committed and willing to invest in their own success.
Wow.
And I'm choosing to offer myself as an accountability partner
Mm-hmm.
through the journey of accountability partnerships. Because what I have seen is that through the work that I do, based on what I've gained as my life lessons,
True.
I have realized the fact that, again, with no disrespect to anybody, and I have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of regard for every individual who contributes into the well-being
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
upliftment of any individual who does that. But what's
Mm-hmm.
happening today is the coaching arena is cluttered, and I'm using the word cluttered very respectfully, by
Mm-hmm.
people who are following a race because they want to be associated with wanting to become a coach,
True.
right? What I'm trying to say here is that you are a coach irrespective of your certifications. You are a
Absolutely.
coach irrespective of what you want. If your heart is calling you to do that, if you're
Mm-hmm.
genuinely willing to stand with people as their accountability partner, you have a chance of adding value and delivering to what is expected out of people. That's point number one.
Absolutely.
The
Mm-hmm.
second, the most important piece is
Mm-hmm.
there are many coaches
Mm-hmm.
who have learned coaching to help leaders, and there are
Okay.
leaders who are coaches and are
Mm-hmm.
coaching leaders to continue to be leaders. And I
Mm-hmm.
have realized, both as a leader and as a coach to leaders, is that leaders hate to be told what is to be done.
Okay. Okay.
Leaders need to be guided, taken along.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, because a coach can tell you what to do, but how to do it
Mm-hmm.
comes with experience and gray hair. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
accountability partnership is all about.
Mm. So, Rajivji, while accountability partnership is given me a strong clue that it is something related with partner in growth. So, let's say if leader wants to grow, so a coach is a partner in his or her growth. So, I've also been using this term quite often, that we are the growth partners with our clients, whereas I slightly differ when it comes to people, wanting to know what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. It is also very important that they need to know who are they partnering with. So often a coach has a high respect in industry, and even leaders know that a coach is, especially in India, a coach is not essentially only the coach who will be asking me the facilitative questions, but will also provide me with the advice and the guidance and the hand-holding support when the need comes out to be. So that's an interesting observation, and I would love to know more about your, your perhaps your viewpoint on this. However, we also need to proceed ahead, and it is very interesting. Congratulations on completing 25 episodes of OYF. But I'm also at the same time keen to know what is the way forward. What are your plans, Priyanka and Rajiv ji? And what do you plan to do in 2022?
Yeah, I think before Priyanka takes that, I just want to have one small comment to a very interesting point that you just now made, uh, about this very correct piece about the distinction between coaching and advisory services or mentoring. That probably is
Mhm.
always a dilemma of,
Yeah.
is this person going to get the best out of
Mhm.
me so that I can deliver better, or is
Mhm.
this person going to tell me what I should do, right? And
Absolutely.
picking up on exactly the same point, what you said, which is why, uh, if you end up telling somebody what to do, very rarely will that be a lasting impact. Whereas if you are able to inertly, going back to something that even Priyanka mentioned, as much as in web presence, the why begins and ends with you, that conversation
True.
with you. The
Yeah.
coaching journey also begins and ends
Mhm.
with you. You have
Absolutely.
to recognize the power within. The
Yeah.
coach can lead you that path. The
True.
coach can help you and guide you to that light. And that's exactly what you Very rightly said. So I think, and as you said, this probably calls for another conversation, and I'm sure this calls for
Absolutely.
probably a very interesting discussion of
Yeah,
what is
absolutely.
it that coaches should do or not do. I think we should seriously
Absolutely.
think
More
about what you
interesting
said.
conversations we can have
Yes,
on this, and
yes,
maybe
yes.
sometime we can have a dedicated session on it.
Absolutely
However,
right.
right now, I am also wanting to know what is the way forward, what are your plans for OYF, and what else can we expect in 2022 from you guys?
So my personal endeavor with everything that I take up is that there needs to be tangible action on the ground. Sometimes my husband jokes that it's something that so he's this big fan of brick mortar, and I kind of am the opposite of brick mortar when I go canvas for web presence. So I need to build more credibility with my husband, if no one else, and show on ground action. So to me, it's extremely important. But let me share with you a few successes that can possibly highlight. So over the year,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
somebody sitting in uh,
Mm-hmm.
Finland was
Mm-hmm.
connected to somebody sitting in Canada through
Mm-hmm.
somebody in India, and the
Absolutely.
Canadian and the Finnish, let's just call them pair for the moment,
Yeah.
association resulted in tangible business for both of them. And while we'll keep
Absolutely.
the monetary part out of it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they both possibly took one step forward in their professional lives together.
Wow. Wow.
And
Amazing.
that's the space, that's the safe space, that's the kind of experience that we want to highlight. That's
Mm-hmm.
really what I mean when I say a safe space is being created. So let me share
Mm-hmm.
with you another example where somebody sitting in India was able to connect with people in South Africa and
Mm-hmm.
ask for support and value credence and verification of the work that he was or she was doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's these connections are possible. I mean, the visas are not needed. These connections are possible. We can support the work that we kind of relate to, and that is possible when you create a safe space, and that is when possible when you're able to bring people together. And digital just makes life simpler that way. So that's really what I'm looking forward to, is to kind of have more such examples and a longer list of examples to share. I personally call it own your future in action. So what I've been able to do for myself so far, let's just duplicate the template.
Absolutely
And
amazing. And
yeah, and I
get you
think
to,
that's
yeah,
they were just to sort of add on to what Priyanka so beautifully
yeah,
expressed in terms of
yeah.
the various things that probably have been the silver lining and the reason for our energy to keep doing what we're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
I think uh, it we would be incomplete if we do not acknowledge the role that every guest, every listener,
Mm-hmm.
every
Mm-hmm.
participant on these conversations has had, and there are numerous
Mm-hmm.
of them. And
Mm-hmm.
through those interactions, as we said in the beginning, the
Mm-hmm.
experiences, the conversations have all been so enriching that I think there is so much of opportunity to crystallize that, to synthesize
Mm-hmm.
that, and
Mm-hmm.
use that for opportunity for more and more people to absorb and learn from. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
one area which probably is definitely a clear way forward opportunity. The second thing I think which is
Mm-hmm.
extremely important to recognize is that if you go back to some basic numbers, right? And
Mm-hmm.
numbers is something that attracts the fancy of all human beings, right?
Absolutely.
We've, through the time that we have sort of been engaged with such wonderful global voices
Mm-hmm.
across more than 700 years of tangible, real, hands on experience, is what's talking here.
Wow. Wow.
And this is global, 9 countries,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Brings in a not just about a perspective of what it is, of how do I live my life. And one thing, going back to again where Priyanka started this conversation, it's about building hypothesis, it's about building
Absolutely.
a baseline, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we have been able to achieve so far is establish the fact that
Mm-hmm.
what we have been doing is something which is the need. There
Mm-hmm.
are so many global voices, powerful thought leaders who can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important piece, probably going forward, is going to be how do you make sure that there is value that is generated
True.
for people to be able to take away something which is tangible. And
Okay.
that's where some of these capsules, some of these areas will probably emerge as one thing which is way forward. Lastly, going back to an expert area that both of you are specialists in, here is an opportunity to convert this into a living real-time social mirror. We are
Absolutely.
living in a
Mm-hmm.
digital age. We are no longer in a
Mm-hmm.
brick mortar time. The
Mm-hmm.
social mirror, the digital footprint, the way that we behave, the way that we talk, the way we express our thoughts, I think there's an opportunity to do a lot more there. Uh, so I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg at the moment. There is
Wow.
so much more
Amazing.
that's to be done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and like you just now said, just by
Mm-hmm.
virtue of coming together of the like-minded people, there are
Mm-hmm.
areas that can open up. We just spoke
Mm-hmm.
about today, and there was clearly an opportunity to bring to life the experiences of coaches and coachees through a engagement which is real life. This is not a coaching session, this is not a paid session, but this is real life experiences. So
Absolutely.
this is the possibility, and that's the power of talking to amazing people like yourself. So we just live that experience right now, right here, of what is
Yeah.
possible.
Thank you so much, Rajiv ji and Priyanka ji. Now, this creates yet another question in my mind because I'm an explorer and I love asking right set of questions so that audience get the maximum advantage. Now, I would love to share that, I started my Value Addition Global show about 2.5 years ago when not many people were doing live shows or, even recorded shows on LinkedIn. And that show was dedicated to LinkedIn. And, we had done more than 200 episodes and invited, I believe, more than 150 guests. This gave me lot of events and situations which were very limited from time to time. We were falling short of resources, and sometimes such events happened, that led us to learn and evolve from unfaithful events during the show, maybe, technical glitches or some guests, getting some exigencies and not turning up. So I would love to know from you some of the uneventful situations or things that you came across in OYF and that led you to learn and be more evolved
I'll
as
take
a
that. I'll
result.
take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that one.
And Priyanka was all excited. Now let's stop, Divya. I'm going to answer this. Yeah.
It
I'm in
starts
trouble
with
now.
the it starts with episode number one, which is not even the episode number one. We haven't even figured out what is this going to continue? How is it? One day, and I had nothing to do with it. I have back end access to Dr. Rajiv's web presence, and in his hosting account, I see one long.com, and mine is a long one, and this was a long one. So my first reaction is, why did he not ask, and why did we not chat about it? It is too long, and so that's what I want to tell him. But before I can start cribbing and complaining, I get, Priyanka, I have decided I'm going live, but I don't know. But what are we going? How are we going to run two screens on the on the utility that you're using? I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm taking my daughter to park right now. So he's like, no, but I've announced it. I said, okay, let's figure that out. And we figured that out in nick of time. But the nick of time was so nick of time that I couldn't ask. Like I'm not in the same city as him. Forget the same city. We're not at the same. We're not co-located.
Wow.
So I have no idea when the slide has to change. I have no idea when what he has planned. I have zero input on what is the effort and the message and all the marketing thing around it. I am clueless. All I know is that at some stage the slide needs to change. I have no idea. But I think we synced it well. It doesn't look anything like that when you see the Obama episode. And yeah, those are those misses that possibly don't get recorded. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And then
There's
So how
eventually,
did it help you evolve over a period
so
of time?
eventually they came up. I think StreamYard was listening. They came up with a feature, it seems. But how it helped us evolve is, I think it just kind of grew trust. It just kind of knew, he had a lot of options and he could have called up anybody under the sun. And um, I, not that I knew how to pull that off either, but I think it was just thinking on your feet, understanding the systems, understanding what is possible. And we tried something, it worked. Even if it hadn't worked, like, if things did go wrong, we would have understood that, okay, this is digital, there is another layer in the middle which we have to master before we can kind of send the message out. I think we've had one, of the so many people who've met, we've had one cancellation, but that's because her house was on almost on fire. Matlab, she called saying that
Yeah,
I'm packing up to leave before, the I think it was the Californian fires which were bothering her that day. So we've
absolutely.
not had that. And then you kind of had to need that journey. So even if you had zero audience during that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, you had to be
Mm-hmm.
true to yourself. This is how it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be done, and that is to be
Absolutely.
done in the most honest manner possible. And while
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not expecting audience, when you are out there
Mm-hmm.
and you're putting your
Mm-hmm.
work and your name to something, you would want to follow a particular standard. Now you set that
Yeah,
standard for yourself and you meet it.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
with platforms that
So
we are using,
Priyanka, yeah, this
surprises
this
come along.
reminds me, Priyanka and Rajivji, because um, while running such long shows for consistent time, over a period of time, you realize that some episodes are like wow moments when you get new realizations and you actually change your course of action. This happened with me, after doing consistently maybe 6 7 months of running Value Nutrition Global Show. People started asking me, Divya, we want to know about this, about that. And then I wasn't finding the right guess. So I said, come on, this is my area of expertise. Let me take some master classes. So the moment I started doing master classes on my show and I started going solo, I immediately noticed that there are more audiences turning to this show. So perhaps, people are okay when we invite guests, but they also want to learn from us. So I would love to know from you guys, what are those episodes or those moments when you have realized during last 25 episodes that these could be the turning points for OYF? Back to you.
Okay, I think to me the turning points are many, and I use the word many for a reason, that because every episode is a unique experience for us, and I'll break that up into at least two three different parts. One is the the inorganic growth that we sort of evolved through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I say inorganic growth, because none of this was planned. This journey is not a plan versus actual journey. This is a
So,
journey committed to a cause, committed to us being
mm-hmm.
true to ourselves, like Priyanka was saying, right?
Yeah.
And in that process, as it always happens, that when you have the intention right, you
Mm-hmm.
get surrounded by people who
True.
probably guide you through that journey. And
Yeah.
that's probably one turning point, that the belief in that reality is, according to me, one of my key lessons and key turning points out of this experience. That's the first part of
Mm-hmm.
it. The second part is that the encounters of learnings through each episode, and I tell you one thing, that the more that we reflect back on this now, and this is something what
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jobs said, when of connecting the dots, right? And it's
Yeah.
such a wonderful experience of life, that the as much as in my own life, when I look back at the last 10, 20, 30 years of my life, I learn more about my life than when I'm in that
Mm-hmm.
moment of that period of my life. Same is true
Absolutely.
for where we are today. The
Mm-hmm.
connecting these dots of these 25 episodes, refreshing those memories,
Mm-hmm.
reliving them, right from
Mm-hmm.
even making this video, watching this
True.
video again and again, is itself a
Mm-hmm.
reflection on the journey and the evolution that we've gone through. I can see
Absolutely.
two definite shifts. One is,
Mm-hmm.
it was about owning your future, traveling from unknown to unforgettable. Then
True.
it became something where we wanted to very consciously committed to give back to people around a focused area of conversation. Then
True.
came the fact saying that we must have an engagement which allows
Mm-hmm.
us to be real so that people can value that authenticity, that ability
Absolutely.
for people to see that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think so, in all humility, one thing that all the guests have been gracious and been kind enough with us in terms of saying is
Mm-hmm.
that they have had the experience
Mm-hmm.
of engaging with us as something different. I think that's all
Absolutely.
that we wanted. And that's
Mm-hmm.
all that we'll continue to want.
Wow.
And that's what probably is the turning point and something that drives us for this. So I
Wow.
think those are three things that come to my mind about it.
Amazing, amazing. So today's session has been absolutely amazing. I've personally loved interacting with you, and I know some of the questions were not part of initial conversations that we guys had fixed. That okay, we might want to explore these kind of questions for the benefit of audience, but some of the questions might have been unexpected for you. I absolutely adored these conversations. So, any last message that you would love to share with your audience on the special occasion of completing 25 episodes?
Ladies first, Priyanka goes first.
So I
That's
think
that's not my last word, by the way.
we'll give you the
Any
chance.
important words? Huh? Okay. Yeah.
I think it's we're living in exciting times, and that we have the mediums to break social and geographical
Mm-hmm.
boundaries to convey a message. It's a good
Mm-hmm.
time. I think the other bit that is fun of these times, that it's okay to have your kids pop into your meetings, and it's okay
Sure.
to kind of have these minor glitches. So we're kind of willing to accept less of that straight jacketed approach that we've all kind of literally groomed ourselves into. So yeah, my last thought is OYF has always alternated between. So we always start our conversations with the backstory, the part that which almost never gets discussed, but it is just so important to kind of for ourselves first, and of course our guests who wholeheartedly accept that who I am today is a bit of a lot, and starting from the childhood. So yeah, my two bits is it's great times. We're losing the straight jacketed approach, and
Yeah.
it's good to be able to break social and geographical boundaries and convey a message.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Priyanka, for exchanging roles with me today, making me the host and you becoming the guest. I would love to ask Rajiv ji about his important message for the audience for today.
Uh, I think the most important message is about choosing to accept whatever is there in the way and form it is for yourself and for people around you. And second, which is very relevant and related to the area of work that I'm invested and committed to, don't be
Mm-hmm.
shy to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if you choose to ask for help, there are enough people available to give you help.
Yeah.
But asking for help is a choice that you have to make.
True. True.
And
I
then
remember
doors will
Rajiv
open,
ji. Yeah.
opportunities will open.
Absolutely. I remember one of my, close friends who's much older to me. She always used to insist, since last 17 years we've been friends. She always insists that Divya, we are made, we are born for seeking help and giving help. So do not shy away. So I so strongly agree with your viewpoint that never shy away from seeking help and never be hesitant to extend your help to others. Thank you so much for having come on the show, exchanging your roles with me today. And thank you so much for giving me this wonderful opportunity to do reverse OYF show and for making me host today.
Thank you, Sugriya. You've been so kind, and absolutely value your time and the work that you do. Appreciate who you are.
Thank you,
Appreciate.
Divya. Thanks for being you.
Yeah.
I'll
My
close the
pleasure.
broadcast now.
Yeah.